Hey guys, it's Kip from DT4EMS, and I'm here with a very special friend of mine. His name is Andy Law. I met Andy when I was teaching an instructor class, and he was in the initial portion. And as most of you know, if you've traveled around, or as I've traveled around and we've met, you know that I kind of work the room and I'm watching people and I'm making sure that people are enjoying themselves and having a good time. Well, the reason Andy stuck out to me was that anytime he would ask a question or make a statement, all of these seasoned providers around him would hang on every word that he said. And that was like, I looked at that and I caught that. Well, by the end of the second day, I knew this dude was classy and he was somebody that I would be honored to have as a trainer, but he wasn't signed up for the instructor program. So I'd gone back to his administration and I was like, hey guys, you had someone that wasn't able to make it. You've got the slot. Why don't you put this fella in there? And they said, well, we've got some policies about that and we really, can't make that happen. And I just said, well, look, here's the deal. I appreciate it. I understand your policies and I understand why those things are there. But I will tell you that everything this guy says, your experienced providers listen to him. So it doesn't matter if he was teaching CPR or how to apply a Band-Aid, a 15-year veteran of a urban EMS system is going to listen to whatever this guy says. So they did some talking, did some discussion, and they got him to hang out at the instructor class. And then like a year or two later, he ended up taking the advanced instructor, which humbled and honored me. But enough about why I think the guy's great. I'm going to let him tell you about how he thought I was a loser before we ever got to meet, and we'll go from there. But here's Andy.
Hey guys, my name is Andy Law. I'm a paramedic for St. Charles County Ambulance District. I am flight paramedic certified as well as tactical paramedic certified. I spent 9 years in the military, in the Navy. 8 years of it was with the Marine Corps. I was a corpsman for them, did all the medical care. I was worked with non-lethal weapons. I was trained in Marine Corps martial arts program, and at the end of my career, I served as a combat advisor in Afghanistan, working with the Afghan military to develop their military medic program, so help advise their school and everything like that. My first impression of DT4EMS, I'm a school of always take the opportunity to train, take any training you can, and I saw DT4EMS come up. I just wanted to see what it's all about. I was totally skeptical. I've taken a lot of self-defense programs such as like CPI, STARS, and stuff like that. And I know, coming from my background, I know that as far as getting somebody to do something they don't want to do, you can't really do it without paying compliance. So I was really skeptical about DT4EMS. And when we signed up, we took the pre-course. I was watching all the videos on Kip. I was like, man, this guy, he's kind of full of himself. I was like, if I could have a little bit of time for him and humble him a little bit. But when I saw him in person, he's outfitted in, your 511 tack pants and 511 shirt. I was like, oh, here's an operator wannabe. It's just kind of like whatever. But as soon as he opened his mouth and started talking to the class, he was a totally different person, a totally different impression I got from the videos. He was someone that I would consider my friend. I would love to hang out with, type of thing. So I gave him my full attention. And the more he talked, the more things made sense. Our personalities are very similar. I'm a squirrel type of guy where it's like you do something squirrel, and that jive with me. I love when trainers do that because it keeps me in my train of thought and with theirs. So totally did a 180 on the thought process. Love DT4EMS. Kind of my became a passion for me. Which my two medical passions or EMS passions are CPR and then now this DT4EMS is CPR for my patients and DT4EMS for my my family. basically.
And I'm definitely the same mindset. I've taken anything and everything when it's offered and available to go, well, does this make sense to me or not? Because my truth may be different than someone else's truth. But for those that aren't familiar with, because you talked about less lethal and then also MCMAP, not everybody may understand that MCMAP is legit. The Marine Corps Martial Arts program is a seriously legit combat system. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And so the Marine Corps Martial Arts program, it's hand-to-hand combat warfighting. It's not even necessarily like law enforcement style, or it's not competitive sports martial arts.
Or let me ask them, so with the message that we teach to the healthcare provider about self-defense, reality-based self-defense for the healthcare provider. So you as a combat corpsman, trained in the Marine martial arts program, as well as multiple other things, you've said that this was your passion. So therefore, I'm assuming, or one of your passions. So I'm assuming then that you believe that what we're teaching, that end user is not only relevant, but works more often than not.
Absolutely. And the thing that what's big for me is the technical aspect. In DT4EMS, it's organic. I joke about when we teach the parry, I joke about being from South Africa, and when we used to watch the infomercials with Sally Struthers, 10 cents feeds a whole family of 20 for 3 months, and it's
Yeah.
they always zoom in on this kid, and he just looks pathetic, and the fly crawls across his eyeball, and that infuriates me because being from South Africa, if a fly flew across my face or anywhere near my face, it's just a simple, everybody knows how to do this. It's organic. So it's, as those infomercials are unrealistic, like I said, the different methods, whenever they're doing any other blocks in different programs, it's kind of unrealistic. And I appreciate the DT4EMS technique because most of the steps are all organic. The parry, the stuff that anybody at 80-year-old, 30-year-old who's had training, no training at all, it's stuff that they do already. And all we're doing is we're just highlighting, identifying, and pointing out the obvious, and make them think in a different light. And it's an easy skill for them to pick up on.
But let's say that for some reason you had no other training, right? Provided maybe, and again, I'm not going to mention any other company per se, but the point is if you didn't really have any training that was truly mission specific for what you deal with on the street as a medic, or you deal with, and reverted back to say MCMAP, would that, because you would obviously stand a really good chance of winning that moment on the street, but do you think you'd still be employed the next day? Or could there be any repercussions from using MCMAP stuff with on the job?
DT4EMS is a best practice class, right? It's a class to protect you, employer, legally and physically, but it's not an ethics class.
There is a time when something might change, and I don't remember who it was that gave me the example the other day, but they were trying to intubate somebody that they had been working on. It's cardiac arrest, right? They've been working them, and then the compressions were continuing, and all of a sudden as they're here, they're trying to do it, and the person keeps turning their head, and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, hey guys, whoa, stop, let's check for a pulse, because the person had started moving again. Well, the point was, it's like, wait a minute. Once there was a change in that relationship at that moment, that meant the providers needed to change. And that's kind of like what we're doing, and I don't want anybody to be misled as we're talking here, thinking that we're going, kill everybody like God's form out, nor are we saying everybody has to be, a victim and there's nothing they can do about it. But that even a person who has a bazillion, countless types of training processes that you've gone through, not only just in the training aspect, but in the real world application of things. That now that you're in civilian medicine, that you step back and you can look at DT4EMS and go, well, and I ask you, is the training methodology solid? Is the skills that we teach make sense? Is it relevant for the people on the front lines?
Yeah, absolutely. All the above. Your assault response guidelines is basically our escalation of force. Someone who shoots us with a small arms weapon, we're not supposed to shoot a tow missile at them, right? So absolutely. For me, the biggest thing is the course of the mindset, the mentality. And it's not enough just to say it's good customer service, because you hear that in medic school, you hear that EMT school, just be nice, be nice. But for me, it's not a be nice class. It's a class of how to think. And I appreciate when we talk about like the race or the OODA loop, which is like how the mind processes information. But I've now noticed that we're in a culture where everybody just kind of grabs their equipment, walks in blindly, doesn't look at any of the exits, and then, you know, when the stress hits, they don't know how to get out. They don't know how many people are in the house with them, stuff like that. So that's what I love teaching. I love teaching, and it's, you know, people think, oh, that's born identity stuff, and it's not. I mean, it's just like it's training. So we talk about like setting up, you know, it for your technical aspect to get good at it, you either have to spar or constantly be involved in violent encounters, right? And you know, realistically, in our county that we work in, it's increasingly getting violent, but it's not as violent like, say, like New Jersey or the city of St. Louis. So the providers easily get complacent, and that's a part of the class that I really enjoy teaching, is the mental forming. And I can see, like, teach situational awareness. People are like, oh, you know, I don't have to be a CIA agent to pay attention around me. Like, anybody could do it, and they start doing it with their family and stuff like that.
Would you agree then? So let's flip gears. Would you agree that we had absolute blast when we trained together?
Yeah, it was awesome. Everything we learned, it was relevant. It made sense, and honestly, you know, like I go back to about you know, even the name of the course is escaping violent encounters. But, you know, for me, it's almost, granted, no matter what my skill set is or whatever, I try to avoid violent encounters. And I think the program does a great job of highlighting that. And I think, you know, because before anybody who gets ready to take the course, they joke about, I'm going to take ninja school or whatever. And I joke, I'm like, you know, it's not about the physical stuff. And I was like, look at me, you know, you see in my car, it's a child seat next to me, and I look like I could fit in that child seat. So, and you know, so of all people, I would probably be the one person that wants to avoid violent encounters most, because mostly anybody that I encounter that wants to beat my ass is usually around 2 or 3 times the size of me. So, I tend to try to avoid violent encounters, and I think the program does a good job of identifying how you can do that. I mean, certainly there are times that you just absolutely cannot avoid a violent encounter, but just highlighting, just paying attention to things around you, and all the 30 steps that you could have taken to avoid that situation that puts you in a bad spot. I think the program does a great job of doing that, as opposed to the other programs out there that's, all right, you're in this violent encounter, now let's try to not to hurt the person that's trying to hurt you. And that's just totally unreasonable. The little techniques that, you know, that anybody could do, at any size, any age.
To escape. And you're not talking about beating them up. We're not talking about knocking them out. We're talking about to escape. The stuff. Yeah. That.
Identifying the win is, you know, saying it is okay to just escape a fight. You like, you don't have to beat somebody into submission or anything like that. It's like, once you buy that space, that moment in time, it's okay to escape, and identifying, you know.
So you said one of the phrases that I love to use anymore, which is moment in time. And it is like, if you really break it down, would you agree that that's what we're trying to do, is to give a person a moment in time to make a decision? Because then that moment in time helps them make a decision for their next moment in time, which helps them make a decision for maybe their next one. And it doesn't have to be a 5-minute, you know, process, you know, of how they go from one to the other, but it is that opportunity for them to go, whoop, and put the brakes on and go, maybe I shouldn't punch that one because it was grandpa. Or yes, let me punch this one because he was trying to, you know, assault me and it's going to hurt me. That moment in time matters, because if one moment I make a wrong choice versus one moment making a right choice can completely change the outcome of the rest of my life. Would you agree?
Right. Absolutely. And like you said, for us, a moment in time is huge, because we pretty much, if you go into a bad call, you're already under stress of, you know, what kind of care you need to provide, what interventions the patient requires. And then when you add to that stress with, you know, a hostile environment, hostile patient, or hostile people around you that are trying to cause you harm, that increased added stress, you don't have that that foresight anymore. It's just like every second is hitting you in the face. So being able to buy 2-3 more seconds to orient yourself and say, okay, what is my best course of action with the information that I have in front of me? That's huge. And
did you have any of it, even with the way that you just said it like that, with having the ability to orient yourself to the dynamics of what's occurring? Our people have gone out there with nothing, you know what I mean? They get nothing, and it's just kind of like, just do whatever it takes to go home. And they haven't qualified that statement, where just do whatever it takes to go home is a good statement as long as it is followed by whatever's reasonable. Meaning, because I can do whatever. So if we go, all right, well then I walk into every call with an M4 drawn, and no matter what's happening, it's a chest pain, it's an OB call where we're going to be delivering a baby. And the minute I walk on a scene, I just start shooting people. Well, guess what? Do I get to go home that night? Yeah, absolutely, for a minute. But then I'm going to prison, and I won't have a home no more because I'm going to lose it. I've lost a job. I lose a marriage. And so when they go, just do whatever it takes to go home, I'm just asking that people, qualify that. And, just with the whole thing of going, yeah, but tag it with, as long as it's reasonable. Because, unfortunately, our peers are left just out there going, I'll just do whatever it takes to go home, or something ridiculous that has zero application for what we face, and that's the point. And so with someone like you coming on today and talking about the fact that, not only your experience, but you're obviously brilliant, you're well respected by your peers. You didn't think the class was going to be worth a darn. You actually, who's this chucklehead kind of a thing, right? And then, because of course it's difficult in a 1 or 2 minute social media kind of a thing to get people to consider what's happening. But, once you took it and you started to train, and we chip away at that stuff, because you've seen it already. In the first few hours when people come to class, they're like this. By hour 4, they're going, oh my gosh, I had no idea, And then because all we're doing is revealing them the truth. And sometimes their truth is slightly different than my truth, but it's still a truth, meaning, the reality of what we face, and that, so the truth in the legal aspect, the truth in the media aspect, the truth in the personal, meaning, and I like kind of how you said that too, is that we're not necessarily a class on ethics. What we're trying to do is to say, look, let's be reasonable, because, our people were ethical to begin with, or they wouldn't have got into healthcare as a general rule. Wouldn't you agree?
Right.
So,
yeah, man, even to add to that, it's the difference between a wish list and a plan. And everybody has always had a wish list. The wish list is, I want to get home at the end of my shift. And then, with DT4EMS, it's a plan. It says, if I'm caught in a bad situation, this is my plan to get out. And for me, what made it, what this plan is so much more appropriate than everything else is, it's legit. When I went through my training for the combat advisor, again, like I said, I was the sole American in the middle of nowhere with my interpreter. And so we had a high risk of being kidnapped and used for ransom, for U.S. ransom or whatever else. So we did crisis negotiation and basically self-hostage negotiation. And the same outline lecture plan and lesson plan that we had for DT4EMS actually correlates with the same negotiation skills and how to talk to people.
Wow.
How to escape. And
I've never heard that before.
The guy who actually instructed me for crisis negotiation was actually the same gentleman that wrote Mayor Giuliani's speech for 9/11 and wrote Tony Blair's speech for the subway bombing. So I knew that was a legit background, and that was, I took that. And then whenever you approach the training with, validating it and ask for help from the person who's trying to hurt you and stuff like that, that's same format. So I was like, I knew that training was relevant and legit, and it made sense because it worked for us. The same level of diplomacy that you would use for international, for people that have communication barriers and high stress environments, it's the same lesson outline, same planning as we're using stateside here for just drunken diabetics. So that was once I saw that the lesson format that kind of was the same training that I had, I knew it was legit training. It made sense. It was reasonable. And again, it gave us a plan on how to get home at the end of each shift, as opposed to just a wish list.
And I that's the first time I've ever heard that one used, and if I have somewhere, I'm sure as heck didn't pick up on it like I did just now, but I absolutely love what you just said, which is the, we all have a wish list, but we didn't always have a plan. And dude, that's big. I really do like that. For certain, that's going to be one of those things that's out there for, I love that. I think that's great. And that needs to be something that maybe all the instructors pick up on and go, hey, look, we've always had a wish list, but let's have a plan. And it doesn't matter and meaning not doesn't matter. I was going to say it doesn't matter what situation you're in. And to give an example, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I took the kids to go see a movie recently. And because it was a new cartoon out that was, famous, everybody's there and the place is already packed, even though we were, 35, 40 minutes early. So we get into the theater, and the only thing left is some front row seats where we would all still be able to sit together. I'm not a big fan of sitting down in the front row. However, it is what it is. So I sit down and I look over the other kids, and I take them because it's, Emma's, 3, and Hunter and Hunter's friends, stuff like that are there. And I go, hey guys, I said, if something silly goes on, like, you hear a bunch of noises, people are yelling or whatever, the fire alarm goes off or what happens, anything like that goes on, we're just going to go, and I want you to come with me, and we're going to go to that door right there. And I point to the exit, make sure they all see that exit right there. And granted, I'm armed and I have a, a flashlight with me just in case, but I'm not paranoid that somebody's going to walk into the theater and start shooting. But I'm prepared. But I also look at my kids and go, hey guys, if someone comes in here and starts shooting people, I'm going to engage this guy and start shooting them. So I need you guys to get together. No, shut up. Stop it. Let's pay attention to stuff that means something. Let's not make the people paranoid. Let's instead make them prepared and go, look, if there's all kinds of crazy noise, Dad said no matter what happens, we go to that door right there. So they have a plan. It's not a wish list. It's not I wish my kids make it to that door. And then granted, it sucks that that's a reality that we live in now. But of course, nobody's ever been shot and killed in a theater, right? But my point is, it's the same. We're going, look, I want you to be prepared. I don't want you to be paranoid. And unfortunately, the wish list leaves nothing but chance. And, I want my safety of me and or my family or their well-being, and whether that be that I could financially, take care of them, also to be based upon planning and not just some, wish. But I love that, man. I love that wish list versus the plan. And I think that's really awesome. And, I will tell you that I can't thank you enough for taking the time, because first of all, the part that I didn't mention I was going to in the very beginning is that, you're a private guy. I mean, you are a person that just doesn't, throw a bunch of stuff out there. And so to me, it was very honorable that you took the time to, validate what we're saying with our message, because I'm not trying to teach military. I'm not trying to teach law enforcement. I'm not trying to teach combat arts. We're trying to teach a specific message to a specific group of people that, violence is an issue. As a matter of fact, it's the leading cause of lost work time in all of healthcare. And yet we still can't get people to listen because they go, and no matter what we do, I have a difficult time of getting people to even consider, researching or sitting down and listening, to the fact of, look what all these other people are saying too, not just Kip, because if it comes from my mouth, they're immediately going to go, well, it's a sales pitch. But if you don't make anything from me, you're not my employee, you are correct.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's no royalties or anything, and for me, it's like you said, it's a passion, and I tell everybody that I teach, it's not up here just to make overtime on teaching. I'll teach a class for free. And it's, even if you have any hesitation in the class, you should just still sit through it. I mean, what's the harm? You lose 2 days maybe, but you might walk out with something. But for me, I feel that there's absolutely, you will walk away with something that could save your life. And if not even into the professional side of how you just look at things, for me, the class is just so much more than kung fu class or ninja class. It's a mindset class. And I think that's what sets it apart from a lot of the other self-defense programs is they don't emphasize so much on the mind. Everybody realizes that the technique takes a long time to learn and to be proficient at. So they sacrifice that part where it's like, okay, well, if we have a 2-day class, let's spend 6 hours on technique and 3 hours on mental prep. Because when you start talking about customer service and mental prep, people get wishy-washy. Like, oh, I've heard this in paramedic school. I've heard this. Of course, you have to be nice, but it's just like it's more than that. It's paying attention to little things and how you think, stuff like that. And I think that to me, that's what makes the program legit, is that mental training in addition to the organic technique and movements.
Yeah, And going back to the customer service side, just on that part right there, they don't really always get it. Well, until they train with us, and then they go, oh, I see what you're saying. Because if the video camera is rolling and you see me being polite to someone, you see me being cool with them, but at that same time, because I'm keeping my space, my hands are above my waist as I talk to someone, very forgiving. I mean, all those little things that have to go together, you know, that really buy us that moment in time, you know. But we're not just walking up going, oh, you know, it's just a kiss everybody's butt and everybody's all right. No, that's not what we're saying at all. But I am saying is that it is harder for someone to want to punch you dead in the mouth if you've been polite to them. You know what I mean? If you make someone believe that you care over the most ridiculous thing, that you actually care, you've now shifted their mindset for a moment. We're no longer perceived as a threat, right? But again, we're a class on self-defense. This is just one piece saying, look, man, if you're polite and you're being cool, maybe they're not going to want to choke the crap out of you. They may want to choke the dude next to you, but they may not want to choke you. And hey, I'm good with that part most of the time. But and that's what we're you know, really stressing. And until they sit with us and they go, please understand that it's in perspective. You know, I mean, we want to go in with the idea of trying to get them back to where they started. Meaning when a person first starts EMT or paramedic school, oftentimes, or even nursing school, they throw the rose-colored glasses on and everybody's gonna be happy to see me and the world is hunky-dory. Like the guy from Jersey said, you know, the other day, it's like they're thinking it's Starbucks and unicorns, you know, or something like that. But and that is true. Now, what I'm asking you to do is to stop the jaded stuff, because hopefully some of these tidbits that people will pick up from a few of these hangouts, that, you know, we've got everything from, you know, former pro fighters, we've got combat corpsmen, we've got inner city guys, everybody who said the same thing ahead of time going, oh, but these people are all in EMS, fire, and nursing now, who all went, well, this is a bunch of crap. It's, you know, who is this wacko? And let's see what this ridiculousness is. They come and take the class, people that are smarter, stronger, tougher, you know, faster, whatever it is that I am, leave the program or leave your class going, wow, that did make sense. You know, at the end of 2 days, we've never had anybody go, I didn't learn anything. You know what I mean? They, more often than not, they leave going, wow, we wish we had more time. It was great. And it was more fun than I was expecting. And why? Because we're a bunch of frontline people ourselves that got together and said, how do we really want to go to class? You know what I mean? You know, there's no death by PowerPoint. There's no, you know, tough guy stuff on the mat, because there's a difference between, you know, escaping versus winning in an escape. You know, winning in self-defense means I just didn't get beat up, or winning a fight means I had to beat someone up to win. So once you get people to see that and they start really understanding that we've got to chip away at the definitions, we have to change their culture. And at the end of the 2 days, for the pre-hospital, or the end of a single day, unfortunately, or at the in-hospital, that we're really getting them to go, oh my gosh, this is a much bigger subject than I thought, and maybe I should think about it. Because it's like you brought up the ACLS and then the experienced provider thing. You know, you had to have a little bit of something, or some sort of a fundamental, before you even thought, well, gee, maybe I should study this piece more or that piece more. And you would even agree that peers that you have met that have maybe come up through the ranks with you, sometimes they still take different paths, right? Maybe one wants to be better at trauma, one wants to really be great at EKGs, one wants to be really great at peds, one wants to be, you know what I mean? And that's all I did was I said, you know, whoa. I went, here's the problem. Why? I was victimized, nobody cared, and it made it into a thing where I said, whoa. So I'd ask a here and ask a there, and then the answers I started getting were flooring me, you know. But they're afraid to come to class because they think somebody's going to beat them up. You know, they're afraid to come to class because they're worried that they're going to be made a fool of. And you know, then it's like once they realize how that we as instructors strive so hard to empower them on multiple levels. You know what I mean? That it's you know, that's what we, you know, have people leaving with more often than not, because we are different than the Paragon class. You know what I mean? Where just for a quick second, but would you not agree that it takes us 4 hours to strip away BS walls that people have put up in the class first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Once we strip that away, do you not see a complete change in the people, not only in their behavior in the class, but they're now hanging on every word? Because if they knew the structure of our program before they ever come in, the first 4 hours is getting past a fake resistance that's been put up. And if you, as a trainer, break it all down, you'll see that in the first day, there's little information taught whatsoever. It's really about stripping away. We're just laying a foundation, giving a little bit of fundamentals. To them, it's rapid fire because it's so busy of us trying to strip it away. But then day 2 is essentially machine gunning a ton of information at them that they're ready to hear now. And so they actually leave going, whoa, man, that's a lot of information. But the first day, if we didn't have to strip away at the fake culture, you know, we would be we'd have 4 more hours that we could be teaching something, you know, really cool, maybe. I don't know, teach them how to do a backflip or something. I don't know, but getting past that initial resistance that you know, we have to. And it's interesting because around the country, you'll have instructors that will look at me, and I can tell they're looking at me like, why in the world are we having to do all that? You know, day 3 of the instructor class, remember, where we start showing why,
Right.
what we do in the beginning, because, you know, it is the first 2 days is all that performance for that end user. The Wednesday or that day 3 is when we start to tell the trainers going, this is why we're doing what we're doing. And people begin to go, oh man, did he use that crap on me? You know, and the truth is, yes, I did. And then you start to see the instructor going, well, why in the hell do I have to do that? And my answer is the same. I did it for you. You should do it for them. You know, before we get done, is there anything at all you want to add, my man?
Yeah. If I go back, and I guess I had a TBI moment, but we talk about, you know, if I could articulate what it would be to like a veteran, and why they should take a class. But and the thing is that, you know, obviously the class, it may not teach you any new techniques that the Special Forces have taught you, or the Marine Corps has taught you, or anybody else, but it'll teach you the mindset of bringing things together and, you know, making things more relevant on the civilian side, as opposed to, you know, we're not looking to make you a ninja or anything like that. But we're looking to let you think and make sense of the civilian side a little bit. And I think that was a big part for me. I just couldn't articulate that earlier, but
yeah, and like,
it's just
if I think that, and that's the unfortunate thing, I'm blessed that we get a chance to do this, because then we can at least have it as a record so that people can look at us, so they can say whatever, you know. But the point is that if they met you personally, you know, I mean, dude, it's you feel it, you know what I mean? The first time, you know, I was even around you, I felt it. And it's the same, it's a human animal. It's still a human animal. It's whether or not I like something or dislike something, it's still a human animal. You know what I mean? It's still intuition. And I think that, you know, when you say, hey, look, I couldn't articulate it at that moment, or this or that, I think that, you know, our veterans most certainly understand, you know, that type of a thing. Plus, if you're like, you know, ADD or, you know, whatever, like many of us in the pre-hospital setting have been or are, that's what makes us good. I mean, you know, the ability to process where everybody else sees chaos. The ADD person is the one you want to have there, you know, as a medic, a fireman, a policeman, or a soldier, because their brain goes, whoop, I see crystal clear in chaos. You know, or used to. I no longer do. But the idea is that what makes a good medic or a good police officer, a good firefighter, a good soldier, a good Marine is because of this, you know, ability to see clarity in chaos. So we all get that's why you and I can have a conversation about 75 different things, and my wife is like looking off the side going, what the hell are they saying? But we know exactly what we're saying. So AD people love it. The intellectuals will sometimes sit back and go, may want to increase that dose of Adderall, guys. It's not working. But for hey, man, we're crystal clear. But listen, brother, man, I thank you so much. Congratulations on all the upcoming stuff that you have. You know how I feel about you, and that I look up to you, man. I respect you. And granted, that can almost be a joke, because I'd have to look down to look up to you, but that's but you know what I mean by that. And I am so honored to have you, you know, not only you know, knowing the fact that I could even remotely call you a peer as a paramedic, but that, you know, you're a part of our culture changing message, and one of those guys who all they got to do is to be in a room with you, and then they go, you know what, whatever this guy has to say, I'm going to listen, because I mean, they know you're legit, brother. I mean, it is what it is. But I'm so happy for you. I know that a lot of things are coming together. I'm just tickled, you know, beyond words, because I talked to one of our mutual friends the other day, and he was giving me the updates of all these, you know, great things that are happening in your life. And so thanks for being just a cool dude. Thanks for doing everything that you've done. And I'll stop this here. That way we can, you know, I can edit it all, let it begin to do its thing, but it's private between us, and I'll, you know, edit out anything that we, you know, need to edit out. But I'll shut up and I'll stop it, and then we can talk.